I remember that day like it was yesterday. The sky was clear, not too sunny, not rainy, just one of those perfectly ordinary days. I was in the kitchen washing my hands when I heard the sound of an engine pulling up in the driveway. That car. I recognized it instantly. A white pearl Mercedes GLC, the exact model my wife had saved pictures of on her phone for months. She used to call it her dream. We even visited the showroom once just to take a look. I still remember how she lit up like a little kid when she sat behind the wheel. But then she quietly stepped out, glanced at me, and gave this half smile that broke my heart a little. I told her, "Next birthday, I'll try." We were saving up for a bigger house, one with a room just for Lucy, our 6-year-old daughter. The apartment we had was too cramped, and between a luxury car and more space for our family, we both agreed the house came first. But that day, that dream car was sitting right there in our driveway. I still remember my wife stepping out of it, wearing this expensive dress I'd never seen before. She was beaming, like someone who just got handed a bouquet after a standing ovation. I asked, "What's going on?" And she just said, "It's a gift from my boss. I finished a major project on time, and he said I deserved it." I nodded, but something twisted in my throat. Something felt off, and I had no idea that what I was about to uncover next would change the way I looked at the woman I had shared a bed with for the past 8 years, forever. If you're curious how the husband found out the truth, and what dark secrets are about to unfold, stay with the story until the end. And if you find stories like this worth listening to, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to support the channel's growth. Claire used to joke that if anyone ever tried to kidnap her, all they had to do was drop her off at a luxury car showroom and she'd spill every secret she had. I never thought she meant it, until that car showed up in our driveway, gleaming under the soft evening sun. She'd been obsessed with the GLC ever since it launched. Every time we drove past the dealership, she'd slow down, stare for a long moment, and say one day she'd pull up to her office in it, right in front of all those coworkers who used to look down on her. I used to laugh and say, "That day will come, just not today." She'd nod, never argued. We weren't born into wealth. We got married when she was 26 and I was 28. It was a small wedding, rented dress, and a budget honeymoon that was really just a road trip along the Central Coast. But I still remember Claire saying, with that proud little grin, "We don't have to go far, as long as we're going together." We started out in a tiny studio apartment with creaky wooden floors that groaned every time we shifted in bed at night. She worked in marketing. I did IT support for a mid-sized software company. Neither of us made much, but we knew how to stretch every dollar. We saved, skipped nights out, stayed in on weekends. By year 3, we finally put a deposit down on our first apartment. 1 bedroom, no balcony, but clean, quiet, and ours. I still remember our first night there. Claire made spaghetti from a jar of store-bought sauce, and I swear it was the best meal I'd ever had. Lucy came along 2 years later, and everything changed. Less sleep, more stress, but also more reasons to try harder. I picked up extra freelance work at night. Claire landed a job at a bigger company with better pay, but it meant earlier mornings, later nights. If someone had asked me back then if I was happy, I would have said yes. Not movie kind of happy, but the quiet, grounded kind. The kind where you know you're on the right path with someone who's walking beside you. And I still believed that, until that car showed up. It was like something small had shifted, barely noticeable, but from that moment on, nothing was quite the same. Everything that came next unraveled what I thought I knew. Claire started changing about 3 months before that car showed up. Not in some obvious dramatic movie kind of way. There was no strange perfume, no lipstick smudged on collars, just little things, so small that if I said them out loud, people would probably tell me I was being overly sensitive. She started coming home later, more often. Always with good reasons. Last-minute meetings, tight deadlines, urgent client issues. And I believed her. I knew how her job worked. I'd had my share of late nights glued to a laptop, chasing bugs and patches just to make a release on time. But then, I started noticing how she was putting more effort into how she looked before work. Makeup more polished, dresses a little tighter, heels instead of her usual flats. One morning I even joked, "Is your office running a secret model agency now?" She laughed and said, "No, I just figured it was time to start taking better care of myself. It's been a while." Fair enough, I thought. Who doesn't want to look good, right? The problem was, there wasn't anyone at home to notice how good she looked. Then one evening, I was working late and needed to check my email. My laptop was updating, so I used hers. When I clicked the search bar, the autofill popped up with her recent history. Lease Mercedes GLC 2025. Full option GLC price out the door. White car with brown leather interior. I closed it quietly. Didn't say a word. Just felt this weird chill run down my spine. We had agreed to put that off. She'd nodded. Said, "The house comes first. I get it." And then one night, while I was prepping dinner, Lucy came bouncing into the kitchen, all smiles. In that sweet, innocent voice, she said, "Mom said her boss is really nice. Yesterday, he took her to eat fancy sushi. She said they had red caviar sushi. I want to eat red caviar sushi too." I stood there for a few seconds, trying to breathe normally. "Mom told you that?" "Yeah. She said if she's not too busy, she'll take me to eat it too." I nodded, didn't push, didn't call Claire to confront her. I know my kid. Lucy doesn't make things up, and she sure as hell didn't make up the exact kind of sushi Claire once told me you could only get at the pricey places uptown. That's when things started clicking into place. The late nights. The new outfits I'd never seen her wear at home. That dreamy smile she'd have when texting someone. And the way she'd quickly hide her phone the moment I walked in. And now sushi. And the search history about the car she said she could wait for until next year. No proof, no photos, no messages, nothing concrete. But I could feel it. Something had shifted. In the way she looked at me. In the way I started looking at her. I didn't know if it was gut instinct or just fear. But from that moment on, I couldn't tell whether I actually wanted the truth, or if I just wanted to hang on to the illusion of peace for a little bit longer. Ever since Claire brought that car home, it was like she was living in this constant state of unfiltered euphoria. She was all smiles, all the time. Light, bubbly, posting picture after picture, video after video on social media. One day it was her posing behind the wheel. The next she's waving from the driver's seat with captions like, "Finally being treated the way I deserve." I saw them. Scrolled past without a word. Not because I didn't care, because I couldn't stop thinking about what wasn't in the frame. That weekend, Claire sent Lucy to her mom's place. She said she wanted us to have a night out to celebrate the new car. She made a reservation at a restaurant with a view. I told her no. I had work piling up and a deadline creeping in. She looked a little let down but didn't push. Instead, she asked if I wanted to test drive the car. I said sure. I offered to drop her off at the spa first, maybe take the car for a spin afterward. She agreed right away, said I could take my time. She'd just call a ride back when she was done. I drove her to this upscale spa near Westbrook. As soon as she got out, I circled out of the parking lot and pulled into a nearby drive-thru for coffee. I didn't have a plan. I just needed a few minutes alone in that car. While waiting in line, I opened the glove box to look for the registration. A cream-colored envelope slipped out. No name on it, just the logo for the Roseberry Grand Hotel. I opened it. It was an invoice. Signature room. 1 night. 2 guests. Paid with a card under the name Richard Cole. The date stamped in the top right corner. 2 days before Claire drove the car home. I remember that night. Claire had messaged me saying she had to work late, that she was going to crash at Sarah's place for safety. Told me not to worry. Ended the message with her usual, "Love you." I'd texted back telling her to get some rest. And now, I'm staring at this receipt. There's no name directly linking her to it, no message to confront. But it was enough. She wasn't at Sarah's. She wasn't pulling a late night at work. She was at the most expensive hotel in the city, with the man whose name was printed on the bill. Richard Cole. Her boss. I sat there in silence, gripping the paper while the air in the car stayed still and heavy. The coffee had gone cold. I hadn't even noticed. My eyes were still fixed on the words, King Suite, Ocean View. The cost of that room for one night was about 3 months of our mortgage payments. I thought I'd be angry, that I'd scream or punch the steering wheel, but none of that happened. What I felt was something colder, deeper, like this numbing realization that I had been swimming too far out to sea without knowing it, and now there was no shore in sight. I didn't call Claire, didn't text. I drove the car home like nothing had happened, but something in me, something real and solid, switched off that day. And whatever comes next won't be silence, not anymore. I walked into the house without turning on the lights. I didn't take off my shoes, not because I forgot, but because, in that moment, everything around me just felt unnecessary. I opened my laptop, no hesitation. I wasn't some tech genius, not a hacker or anything. But I knew enough to access the auto backup. Claire used iCloud, and I still remembered the login. Same email she once asked me to recover for her 2 years ago. I pulled up the iMessage backup. I didn't even know what I was hoping to find. Or maybe I did. Deep down, I just needed a reason to stop lying to myself. The messages with Richard Cole were buried in an older backup. Claire had wiped them from her phone, but deleting them off a device doesn't delete the truth. I searched his number. The thread popped up, starting about a week before the car ever arrived. It started innocent enough, messages about work, prepping for some big upcoming project. But then the tone changed. I saw Richard telling her he'd booked the Roseberry Grand, top floor. The same suite, as usual, he wrote. He told her to come early, not to make him wait. Said she should shower properly, not using her regular stuff but the soap he had placed in the gift bag last time. The perfume, he added, needed to be sexy but not sweet, not cheap. Then he got specific, told her to wear the exact outfit he'd laid out for her. Tight skirt, fitted white blouse, black-rimmed glasses, the sexy secretary look he liked. And then came the line that made my stomach twist. He told her to be waiting on the bed, in a position no man could refuse. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My hands were shaking, but my eyes kept moving, line after line. Claire's reply hit harder than anything. She said she was scared, that it all felt insane, that she'd never done anything like this before. Then, the next message, she said she wanted to do it, as long as he kept his promise, as long as he gave her the car. The next day, she followed up, said it was done. She had picked the color, pearl white, just like they agreed, and she hoped he wouldn't forget what he promised. I didn't read further. I couldn't. That was enough. Enough to make this house feel foreign. The living room, the dinner table, even the faint trace of perfume still clinging to the coat she left hanging by the door. She wore the outfit he picked. She laid down in that room I've never even seen. She sold something no one should ever have the right to price, and called it deserved. And then she drove home in that car, like it was some kind of trophy. But that car wasn't a reward. Not for hard work, not for career success. It was a transaction. Payment for a night I didn't even know had a price tag. I wasn't just betrayed. I was never even in the game. Claire made a choice. Not because she was cornered. Not out of desperation. Not because she had no way out. She chose this. She chose it because she wanted it. Because she believed she deserved it. And that warped idea of deserving came at the cost of dignity, of marriage, of a 6-year-old little girl who still thought her mom was someone to admire. I closed the laptop. I didn't delete anything. I just took screenshots. I needed evidence. I needed time. I needed to breathe, to find whatever shred of clarity was still hiding under the wreckage of what used to be trust. I stood up, poured myself a glass of water. The sound of it hitting the glass, soft, steady, somehow felt like the loudest thing in the room, and for a second I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just sat on the couch, in the exact spot where I used to build Lego towers with Lucy. And I sat there for a long time, not to cry, not to plan my next move, but to come to terms with the fact that some things, once you know them, you can never unknow. I didn't confront her right away. Didn't throw the laptop against the wall like some cheap movie cliché. Women like Claire, if they can hide something like that for days with a straight face, rage won't make them confess. It'll only make them defensive. I took screenshots of the messages, the hotel invoice, the reservation details, stored everything on a separate external drive. No cloud, no trace. Clean, quiet, untouchable. The next morning I called in sick. Didn't tell Claire. She still thought I was heading to work like any other day. Still kissed me on the cheek before leaving. Still gave me that soft smile like she hadn't just ripped our life in half. I went to see Marcus, an old friend turned family lawyer. He asked if I was sure, if I had confirmation. I nodded. I didn't need more proof. What I needed was to know where I stood, legally. With Lucy. With the apartment both our names were on. With the savings, Claire had no idea I'd been quietly building from freelance gigs over the past 3 years. Marcus told me I had a solid chance of keeping custody. Claire worked long hours, traveled often. From everything I described, she'd prioritize status over stability. He also warned me, when it came to dividing assets, I needed to think ahead. Guilt only lasts so long. After that, people protect themselves. I left the office in silence. On the way home, I picked up vanilla ice cream, Lucy's favorite. I promised her earlier I'd take her to the zoo this weekend. That night, I texted Claire's mom and asked her to pick Lucy up for a sleepover. Claire asked why. I said we needed to talk. Once Lucy was gone, Claire seemed tense. She asked what this was about. I told her nothing serious, just a few things I needed clarity on. We sat in the living room, no yelling, no evidence thrown on the table. I just looked at her, the woman who had shared my bed for 8 years, and asked one simple question. That night, were you really at Sarah's? She paused. A few seconds, then nodded. I asked again, are you sure? Because Roseberry Grand had a bill that night. Not under your name, but very much within your timeline. Her face started to lose color. She asked what I was talking about, told me not to overthink it. I stayed calm. I told her, I'm not overthinking. I saw the messages. iMessage backups don't really disappear. Claire froze. She tried to pivot, said I invaded her privacy, said I was making something out of nothing, that it was just dinner, that he was just grateful for her work on the project. I said nothing. Let her talk. Let her scramble. Until her words dried up and all that was left were red eyes and a single sentence I'll never forget. It was just one night. No feelings. It wasn't serious. I didn't respond, didn't nod, didn't shake my head. She kept going, like she needed to convince herself more than me. She said, you never gave me the things I wanted. You always talked about next year, or let's wait, or think about Lucy. And then she cried. I stayed still. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was overloaded. So full of emotion, I didn't know which one to pull out first. I asked her one question. If Lucy found out that her mom traded one night in a hotel for a car, what do you think she'd believe? Claire didn't answer. She couldn't. I didn't say another word after that last question. Even as I spoke it, I knew I'd just closed a chapter, maybe the whole damn book. Claire sat still for a few seconds. Then she broke down, not the shaky, defensive crying from earlier. This was different. This came from somewhere deep, heavy, guttural. The kind of cry I'd only seen once before, the night her father passed away. She dropped her head, covered her face with both hands, like if she couldn't see me. Maybe I couldn't see her either. Not like this. She begged me not to tell her mother, not to tell Lucy, said she knew she messed up. She kept repeating it, over and over, like saying it enough times might somehow make it less real. She said she got caught up in emotion, that Richard had taken advantage of a weak moment, that she never meant for things to go that far, that it was just one stupid night, one slip, one mistake she'd never made before. And then the tears came again. Harder. She clutched the hem of her nightgown, trembling like a kid facing consequences for the first time. She said she couldn't lose Lucy, that she was terrified our daughter would look at her differently, That her mother, strict, traditional, unforgiving, would never be able to unsee this version of her if she found out. That everyone would stop seeing Claire and only see a woman who traded her family for a car. She crawled toward me, kneeling on the floor at my feet, clinging to my hand like a child begging forgiveness from a parent. She asked if I hated her, if any part of me still loved her, if, somehow, I could ever forgive her. I didn't pull my hand away, but I didn't squeeze back either. I just looked at her. This woman collapsed at my feet, my wife, my betrayer, my daughter's mother, and now a scared shell of the person she once was, all because of a choice she once believed was worth it. I told her I wouldn't tell Lucy, that our daughter didn't need to know, not now. I said I wouldn't tell her mother, wouldn't make a scene, wouldn't bring this to family dinners or her office or anyone else. She could breathe easy, for now. But then I told her, this wasn't for her, it was for Lucy. She said nothing. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, closed the door behind me. And in that moment, after 8 long years, what echoed louder than anything was the sound of her sobbing in the living room. But it wasn't the sobs of someone crushed by guilt. No, it was the sound of someone terrified to lose the mask they'd spent years perfecting. I didn't destroy anything, didn't storm out, didn't scream or throw her betrayal into anyone's face. I didn't post some cryptic confession on social media, didn't message Richard with threats or expose. I didn't feel the need to. Instead, I printed everything I had, the receipt, the messages, the backup transcripts, slipped them into a file folder. The next morning, while Claire was still in the bedroom, her eyes swollen from a night spent crying more than sleeping, I placed the folder on the kitchen counter. And I simply said, calmly, that I'd sent it all to my lawyer, and that I wanted her to sign a temporary separation agreement. For now, while I figured things out. From this point forward, we'd no longer share finances. Any expenses related to Lucy, I'd continue to cover fully. But everything else, she was responsible for her own life now. Claire didn't argue. She stayed quiet, then nodded. The kind of nod that comes from someone who knows that every word out of their mouth will only make them look smaller. A week later, she packed her things. Not much, just clothes, some makeup, a few books. I helped her box it up, said nothing cruel, just passed her items when needed, like I was helping an old friend move out, not the woman I once thought I'd grow old with. Lucy didn't really grasp what was happening. She thought Mommy was just going on a long work trip, and Daddy would be taking care of her for a while. I kept her routine the same, still dropped her off and picked her up on time, still made dinner, still read her bedtime stories. I didn't tell friends, didn't tell coworkers. When people asked about Claire, I'd just smile and say, "We've both been busy lately." I knew they were curious, but I also knew silence has its own kind of power. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it means there's nothing left worth explaining. Every time I looked at the dining table, once set for 3, I didn't feel empty. I just felt light. And every time Lucy asked, "When's Mommy coming back?" I'd tell her, "Soon, but for now, Daddy's here, and I've got you." She'd nod, satisfied, and move on. I don't know where Claire's staying now. I didn't win anything. I didn't lose either. I simply walked away from a game I never agreed to play. And in that silence, in the space between anger and peace, I finally saw the value of who I really was. It's been over 6 months since Claire moved out. Lucy's grown a little. She can tie her own shoes now, and she doesn't ask about her mom every night anymore. She still calls Claire on the weekends. I've never stopped that. I'm not the kind of man who uses his kid as a weapon. I don't really wonder who drives that car anymore, or whether Richard kept his promises. Honestly, I don't even think much about that hotel night now. That memory feels like an old wound that's already scabbed over, still there, but no longer bleeding. I've learned something. People don't betray you because they stop loving you. They do it because they stop respecting the line. And once someone crosses that line, no amount of love will pull them back. I used to think that a happy family was something you could build just by giving it your all. that if you loved deeply enough, gave consistently enough, you could keep it whole. But I've come to realize, some people, when they're given too much, start to believe they deserve more. And when they decide to put a price on love, they're the ones who'll end up paying for it later. I don't regret trusting Claire. I don't regret staying calm and walking away. Sometimes silence is the last thread of dignity you have in a game that you were never supposed to play in the first place. I still believe in love, but now I understand better where forgiveness should end. I understand that some things can't be fixed. They can only be accepted. And some people are meant to be a chapter, not the whole story. These days, I live slower. I don't rush to be the rock or the ideal husband anymore. I make my morning coffee, take Lucy to school, do my work, come home, read a bit, and turn off the lights on time. I don't know who's coming next in my life. But I know this. Whoever they are, they'll meet a different version of me. One who's not as quick to trust, but also not as quick to fall apart. And Claire. I don't hate her anymore, but I don't miss her either. Maybe that's how I know I've finally moved on. Not with triumph, but with peace. Thank you for staying with the story until the very end. Every story is a small slice of life, and if this one made you think differently about love, forgiveness, or self-worth, leave a like, hit subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments so you won't miss the next one.